Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, December 24th. Is that a significant date? I think so. 24th, 2025. Tomorrow, of course, will be December 25th, 2025. And yeah, that's the significance. You have to go out and get lottery tickets tonight that have 25s in. And there's all sorts of special ones that are thematic for the season, which, oh yes, includes Kwanzaa. I assume there's a Kwanzaa scratcher available. And, of course, a Christmas scratcher. It's Christmas Eve. Ho, ho, ho. I guess we're baking cookies, buying carrots for reindeer if they show up and want a snack. I don't know why the reindeer don't want cookies. I don't think that's really realistic. I mean, they'll eat the carrots, too. But I would guess that if you meet a reindeer and you are armed with a cookie, you might offer it to them. Maybe it's not good for them, but then neither are the cookies good for Santa. Have you thought of that? Some people have, and will be leaving out protein bars or other fun and interesting snacks. I assume somewhere in the world there's probably plenty of kids who have been told, no, not cookies, you need carrots or celery, and they likewise want to put out carrots and celery for Santa, knowing, after all, that probably he could use a little trimming down, as we all could. That's sort of the boat we're all in today. All right. Well, lots to catch up on. Lots has been happening. I've been tinkering with the settings more. Greg Dworkin is standing by and standing nearby, as a matter of fact. We've been adjusting microphone spacing and knobs and buttons and all sorts of things. He's been turned upside down, I was going to say literally. The picture has literally been turned upside down. He hasn't. It's all photo manipulation. It's AI, obviously, that's doing this to us and turning everybody upside down. And we got it back up on right side up today. But our picture was, maybe we'll use this as our fanfare to announce it was fractured today. So and this is sort of almost Christmassy in the little Tinkerbell sort of sounding way. That was the needles falling off the tree, I guess you could say, and sweeping them up. And now the Christmas tree has exploded and everybody inside the home is severely injured. That's really a bit of a downer. But not having Greg Dworkin here, that's not a downer. Good morning, Greg. How are you? Oh, you're still muted. How about that? Let's try that. I have
to wiggle my mustache or something.
Yes, right. Twirl it a little bit. Okay. All right. Well, buttons are, they're a big deal. Or maybe you were just having a sip of coffee. I didn't have your picture up yet, so I couldn't tell whether you were speaking and not being heard or just not interested in being on the show yet.
I was putting all sorts of filters on. I had a COVID mask on, and
you need that again.
I was a puppy. We're still playing with, this is a really complicated piece of software here. And it changes sounds when you don't want it to, and it changes your picture when you don't want it to.
Yeah.
But I think going into 2026, we've solved most of the technical issues. And I was just noting to David that sometimes when we do the podcast, or I listen to the podcast later, that his voice is very loud and mine not so loud. I can't tell if it's buttons and dials because he has himself turned up to 11 and me to 3.
I think I did.
Or whether it's me because I don't have the microphone close enough.
And that too.
Because when you move the microphone close, your voice gets really low.
Yeah. So, I realized when you showed me that you had moved it forward, I said, you know what? I haven't seen the microphone in the picture, so it must not be close enough. Such a good mic.
I didn't really need it, except if you want to hear my voice, you do.
Yeah, well, Other reasons? Any other reason to use? I mean, we bought the microphone for decoration.
Well, you can hang stuff on it like socks, if you want it to dry.
I have some.
Very useful for that. It's just the right shape.
Okay.
So the stories are the same stories. It's Barry Weiss.
I can't believe they haven't gone away.
It's Abbreviated Pundit Roundup covering Jeffrey Epstein. More Stories That Won't Go Away is the title.
Yeah,
we have some new stuff, though,
Roundup.
in addition to that I do want to talk about, and that's some legal stuff.
Oh, boy.
And I am not a lawyer, so I get to interpret this in terms of what a non-lawyer would see.
All right. Fair enough.
Okay.
News.
The Washington Post, one of many that covers what I think is what Joe Biden would call a BFD. The Supreme Court blocks National Guard deployment to Chicago in defeat for Trump. Put it right there in the headline.
Okay.
The order's a rare loss for the administration at the High Court. 3 conservative justices dissented. Now, they say that. 3 conservative justices dissented. But that's not how I interpret the Supreme Court as a non-lawyer, non-court expert.
Oh.
This is not a 6-3 court. It's a 3-3 court.
Okay.
You have Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas always voting wrong on everything except Indian affairs, where Gorsuch is better.
Yeah, that is something, isn't it? Okay.
You have 3 liberals. Everybody knows who they are. And then you have Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Roberts, the Chief Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 are not the same as the other conservative 3. And those 3 at times, any combination of them, wind up voting sometimes with the liberals. They all have the same goals as the conservatives. And me not being a lawyer, I say, and many people agree with me, many people are saying, that they decide things based on the goal they want to reach, not based on the law.
Yeah.
And so Roberts wants
to
do away with the Voting Rights Act, so what the hell does the law got to do with it? What are we supposed to do, you moron? Hey. So we have Amy Coney Barrett, who seems to be the most sensible of them. And Kavanaugh's such a weird duck. He's always been a weird duck. And it turns out to me, Kavanaugh can get shamed, and was, and I'll tell you why.
All right.
And so those 3 are their swing votes. And, yeah, they swing mostly conservative. But
swingers, baby. Right.
The Supreme Court said Tuesday it would not allow President Donald Trump to deploy the National Guard in the Chicago area for now, a significant setback for his campaign to push troops into cities across the country over the objections of local and state leaders. The president's ability to federalize the National Guard likely only applies in exceptional circumstances, the court's unsigned order said. Well, that's good. Who gets to decide exceptional? Well, Trump says I do, and the court saying, actually, we do. So there's that. Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch dissented. Kavanaugh filed a separate concurrence, which I want to talk about in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Chicago case, they say, is the first time the Supreme Court has weighed in on one of Trump's attempted deployments of National Guard forces, and while temporary, the order could have far-reaching effects by repudiating Trump's claim of virtually unchecked authority to mobilize and deploy troops he says are necessary to fight crime and protect immigration enforcement officers. The problem with Trump claiming this, even though the law may say that he can, is that he lies all the time. Everybody knows it. So when he says it's necessary to fight crime and protect immigration enforcement officers, that's just him saying it. Doesn't make it true. Well, I'm the president.
He's allowed to say it.
True. I'm the law. And the Supreme Court said, no, actually, no, you can't. You have to prove it. So the order could affect how lower courts rule in other cases. I doubt it, because the lower courts have already been ruling against him.
Yes, they'll just feel more comfortable when they do it now.
Yeah, and it does point out National Guard deployment in D.C. is different because D.C. isn't a state, and the federal government runs D.C. in ways that aren't true for other places.
Yes, it might not. Maybe we wish it wasn't the case. People in D.C. might wish it wasn't the case, but it is at the moment.
Right. So the Trump administration justified putting the National Guard under federal control by invoking a law that allows the president to federalize the Guard if he's unable to execute federal law using regular forces. That language refers to civilian law enforcement agencies such as ICE. The Justice Department also asserted that courts have little authority to review the president's decisions, and the court majority rejected that argument.
Okay.
That's important.
They didn't reject that they have little authority. They just said, what little we have, we're using, and you fail under it. So there is that. But they may also disagree with how little they've got.
Right. In his concurrence, Kavanaugh said he agreed with the decision to allow the court a ruling to stand, but he would have ruled on narrower grounds and fears what would happen for unforeseen things. Well, we know foreseen things. We know what they're doing with it.
Well, you guys are staying at the court, right? I mean, if we have something unforeseen, can we come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Then I wouldn't worry about it too much, Brett. Have a beer.
But the dissent here from Alito is good in the sense it's clear.
Okay.
Alito said he had no basis for rejecting Trump's determination he was unable to execute the federal immigration laws. In other words, Trump says it, therefore it's true. What the hell are you interfering for?
Yes, just more deference he thinks there ought to be. He wouldn't feel that way if it was, Biden or Obama making the determination, but, that's where he is.
All right. So J.B. Pritzker's celebrating. And again, I've said this before. Many people are saying Pritzker is what Gavin Newsom pretends to be. Pritzker's, getting all this stuff done. He fights, but not necessarily in your face on Twitter. And so I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's a bit of a, I don't know what you would call it, but yeah, he's certainly thrown a few punches in his day too.
And they've landed. So, and this is one of them. The thing about Kavanaugh's concurrence, is that he had a footnote.
Well, yeah, okay, they often do
these things. Yeah, right. But
he wrote it with his
covering
feet.
This, Chris Geidner at Law Dork says a Kavanaugh note on Kavanaugh stops.
Aha, okay, I see.
What's a Kavanaugh stop, says The Week. The name derives from a September ruling by the Supreme Court, which by a 6-3 vote lifted a lower court order barring immigration agents in L.A. from stopping people based solely on several factors, including race. The original case was brought by plaintiffs who argued agents conducting immigration sweeps targeted L.A. residents just for being working-class Latinos. And that profiling has been barred since 1975. When a unanimous Supreme Court ruled the California border agents who stopped the car because its occupants looked Mexican violated the Constitution's protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. And that was true up until the September ruling by a 6-3 vote.
All of Kavanaugh's life until Kavanaugh got on the bench.
He said it was constitutionally permissible and common sense to target people due to apparent ethnicity combined with other factors.
Okay.
Such as speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Or being at a car wash. This is what it says here in the article. Other factors like being at a bus stop. Being stopped on such grounds is a minor inconvenience, wrote Kavanaugh. Any questioning is typically brief, and U.S. citizens and legal residents will promptly go free. So what Kavanaugh did when he wrote that is essentially say a Kavanaugh stop is permissible, but there's some underlying things that he assumes good faith on the part of the government, which is ridiculous, but he does.
Yeah. Well, okay? He's a funny guy.
And now that these Kavanaugh stops have his name on it, he's embarrassed. So Chris Geidner writes, a Kavanaugh note on Kavanaugh stops. Finally, in a case over Trump's federalization and deployment of the National Guard, this one that Pritzker won, you can't send him to Illinois because, you're making it up. Kavanaugh dropped a footnote in his concurrence indirectly responding to the Kavanaugh stop question.
Yes. He doesn't actually, give them credit for making him take notice by saying, I did this because I saw this stuff, but it's plain because there's no point in discussing it in this case, really.
Right.
Except for this.
So Geidner wrote, the thing that's so weird about this is that this comment has nothing to do with this case, but he threw it in there anyway.
Right. I should let him say that. Go on.
And here's the comment. The state and government disagree about whether the immigration officers have violated the Constitution in making certain immigration stops and arrests. Exactly the thing they ruled on in September. The basic constitutional rules, this is Kavanaugh writing, governing the dispute are longstanding and clear. And I quote this part. The Fourth Amendment requires that immigration stops must be based on reasonable suspicion of illegal presence, stops must be brief, arrests must be based on probable cause, and officers must not employ excessive force. Moreover, the officers must not make interior immigration stops or arrests based on race or ethnicity.
Well, has he told anyone?
Exact opposite of what he said. Because you know why? This is common sense.
Yeah. It may very well be that at the time he really thought, ICE would behave itself or something. Yeah. I don't know, but he was still wrong when he said it. But
something. So what I'm saying is that, again, the reason it's a 3-3-3 court is because Kavanaugh can be shamed, and here he is being shamed. So in a footnote, in only marginally related case, says Geithner, Kavanaugh wrote all of this stuff. It was, in short, an effort to address the Kavanaugh stop critique without so much as a reference to his opinion or even the Supreme Court's order.
Yeah. Weird.
So they just make stuff up as they go along, and I said, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't care if, law professor, esteemed senior law professor on a named chair at this university. No, it's not true. It's based on that. It's bullshit. They do what they want, and they justify it afterwards.
Yeah, and sometimes they get embarrassed and undo it. So. Yeah. Well, I think that's been clear for quite some time. That's good news. But, not everybody believes it. There's still people who adhere to the old ways, worship the old gods, what have you. But
right. Oh, by the way, totally unrelated, but still court-related, so I thought I'd mention it.
Well, partially
Trump-appointed judge, says Axios, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem's shop, must restore disaster grants to Democratic states. A federal judge blocked Trump administration efforts to reallocate Department of Homeland Security counterterrorism and security grants away from states that won't cooperate on immigration enforcement policies. Ultimately, this is all about immigration. The Trump administration is made up of a bunch of racist jerks.
That's
and
true.
They try everything possible to
They're
be
also
racist.
Bold assholes.
And the lower courts are saying you can't do that. And the Supreme Court screwed up. Right, and said, well, you can in certain circumstances because we have some good faith on the part. And then we saw what was going on, and we said, you know what? It's not good faith. Let's just go back to original principles here. You can't do this stuff.
Good. That will do nicely. I don't know how much force anyone will be able to give to a footnote in a concurring opinion. Right. To an order of this nature. It's not but the point
what's
is
the saying? And this goes back to Andrew Jackson, right? I mean, it's nice that Kavanaugh wrote a footnote in a concurrence. Now let him enforce it.
Yes. Well, that's the thing is, and now I think we're all on or not us. We're glad to be on notice. The immigration officials and the rest of the administration are on notice that they will likely lose Kavanaugh's vote if they don't straighten themselves out. But that doesn't do anything for the people who've already been
Amy
hit.
Coney Barrett and the Chief Justice may well go along with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's that group of three that you talked about. Kavanaugh is probably the most difficult to move, but he's moved. So that's a good sign. Amy Coney Barrett, took her legal education seriously. That's the difference between he didn't really take it. That's true. She's sort of like proud of having made it through law school at such a elite level and reaching the pinnacle of her career. And Brett Kavanaugh just sort of figured that was always going to happen, maybe for him. They both studied the same law, right? And occasionally he's like, "That's not how I remember it," and I don't know why, but it isn't. And now I feel embarrassed. Amy Coney Barrett remembers. I'm conservative, but I recall that there was this whole thing about equal protection under the law
and I have ethics
equal applicability.
And I believe in precedent, certainly sometimes.
And Roberts is just like, how do I look?
How does the court look?
Yeah.
Can I get away with this? No, I can't. I guess I'm going to rule with these other two.
But that's I guess how they swing. It's good news. I'm glad he recognizes how quickly the immigration authorities took license with his ruling.
Well, they took license before the ruling.
Yes, that's true.
They didn't change after the ruling.
Right,
so I'm not sure his ruling changed anything. But again, making the distinction between ICE and Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol.
Yeah.
CBP.
Well, I think that
was
did embarrass
always
him.
awful. And ICE decided to be as awful as CBP after this ruling.
Yeah, he meant it to circumscribe their behavior, and they actually were like, actually it licenses even more bad behavior, and he was a little embarrassed about that because
they had a good reason for stopping them and arresting them, and they'll prove it in court. They'll have their day in court.
Yeah, and then what ended up in court was videos of people saying, that guy looks Mexican, hit him with a stick. And then he was like, I can't believe they're naming this after me, and so he went out to say, that's not what I meant. And hopefully, look, what can I tell you? I don't know whether it's going to have any impact. The gorillas with the sticks aren't reading the opinions, but someone will yell at them at some point, and somebody might end up in trouble, and that will maybe learn.
It's all about the gorilla bosses.
Yeah, they have
gorilla
to land
managers.
in jail. There are one or two people from I read in the last couple of days, like on occasion, one of these abusive ICE guys ends up in jail for something completely different, usually domestic violence. Well, not completely different. It's just a different setting.
Right.
And
right.
And then
it's a
then
feature,
they end up
not
in
a bug. That's why we hired him.
Right. They end up in the general population in the jail, and there his mind changes. But it's just one at a time. It's a very slow process.
Speaking of legal issues.
Yes.
And immigration, which again is at the heart of the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically racist jerks.
Yes.
And so what's that got to do with Barry Weiss? Everything. So this is from Just Security.
Okay.
Remember that,
I guess it's security.
Interestingly enough, she pulled just hours before it was supposed to go on the air.
Right.
A piece on Venezuelan gang members, quote, gang members, end quote, in scare quotes, alleged gang members, detained by the Trump administration, flown to El Salvador, and then imprisoned at CICOT, a notorious torture facility.
Yes. I know that because Canada told me.
Yes, and so she pulled the segment, Canada played it, everybody's seen it anyway.
Yeah.
The Streisand effect.
Yes. I wondered about that, but okay.
Right.
I'll talk about it later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
so,
I could talk about it now.
So this happens.
Yes.
And then she has to put out a justification for why she did this. Everybody knows why she did this. Her bosses wanted her to do this because they're trying to suck up to the Trump administration. But this is covered in Just Security by Ryan Goodman and Tom Jocelyn. Pretty good lawyer types. And they write, on Sunday evening, 60 Minutes was set to air a segment on the alleged Venezuelan gang members. Within 3 hours of airing, however, the segment was pulled by Barry Weiss, the recently appointed editor-in-chief of CBS News. She doesn't run the entertainment division. She runs the news division, which now is entertainment. Weiss's decision immediately caused controversy. So her stated reasons for spiking the segment exhibit a fundamental misunderstanding of the government's legal case against gang members.
Oh,
Indeed,
I didn't know she fundamentally.
As fairly recent guests on the show, we would be shocked if the multiple layers of 60 Minutes fact checkers and legal reviewers would get anything wrong, but Weiss did. We now know the opening lines of the segment, because Canada showed it, was this, quote, The White House claimed the men were terrorists, part of a violent gang, and invoked a centuries-old wartime power, saying it allowed them to deport some men immediately without due process.
Without due process.
Without due process.
Right.
Okay. That's correct.
Yeah, they got it right.
That is correct. That is absolutely right. The lawyer's right. Now, in an email to staff on Sunday explaining her rationale, Weiss claimed they need to do a better job of explaining the legal rationale by which the administration detained and deported these 252 Venezuelans to CICOT.
Why, it's wrong.
252 people they did this with. And Weiss continued, and I quote, It's not as simple as Trump invoking the Alien Enemies Act and being able to deport them immediately, and that isn't the administration's argument.
Yes,
the administration has argued, says Barry Weiss, as if she's a lawyer and she knows what she's talking about. The administration has argued that in court that detainees are due judicial review, and we should explain this with a voice arguing that Trump is exceeding his authority under the relevant statute, and another arguing that he's operating within the bounds. We have to do both sides here.
But the finding has been that he's not operating within the bounds. Well,
there are several problems with this take, the lawyer's right.
Oh, there we
go. If 60 Minutes had explained this as Weiss described they should, the segment would go from being true to being false.
You know.
The administration has argued, she says, that
issue.
Court detainees are due judicial review, and we should explain this. But contrary to Weiss's stated understanding, the administration has argued the men are not due judicial review.
Right.
That's the exact opposite
they're wrong,
of what she says.
That's right about what they say. Yeah. Okay. Fact check.
And in fact, they weren't.
She's not right.
Hustled off. Right?
Yeah.
And then they document this. And they document that aliens determined to be alien enemy are not entitled to judicial. So Barry Weiss claims they have she's doing a Kavanaugh. I assume good faith on the part of the administration. The lawyers are saying, no, they're not acting in good faith. They're doing the exact opposite of what you claim they are.
Yes. I mean, that's the whole case. The case was, hey, stop that plane. Those guys haven't had judicial review.
Yes.
No.
And that's just one point.
In fact,
number
F-U.
two.
Yeah.
She says we should explain this with a voice arguing Trump is exceeding his authority under the relevant statute and another arguing he's operating within the bounds of his authority. Now, whether Trump exceeded his authority is largely irrelevant, if not completely. A version of the cancel segment has been posted online, and the point Weiss raises is a second-order question not at issue in the segment.
That
the first-order
seems true,
question, whether the men were summarily deported in violation of their due process, is stated at the outset of the segment. So whether or not he's exceeding his authority isn't the point. The point is he did it.
Yes, I suppose so. And especially as the segment was like, well, let's say he did it on proper authority. Then when they got there, they were tortured. Is that cool? Sure, proper authority equals torture.
Number three, Weiss ends, there's a genuine debate here. And the lawyers say, no, there's not.
Oh, yeah.
Chief Justice Boasberg ruled the purpose of the Trump administration's hasty removal was evident. That is, it was certainly intended to deprive them of an opportunity to secure prior judicial review.
Yeah.
So Boasberg's findings contradicts Weiss's blanket statement that the administration has argued in court the detainees were due judicial review. They didn't get judicial review. They were not supposed to, according to the administration, get judicial review. And a judge has already ruled that that's wrong. So what the hell is Weiss doing? She's not a lawyer. She's not even a journalist.
Well, maybe she thinks eventually the Supreme Court will say there's really no role for the courts in all of this, and we want to be fired.
See, but what I'm getting at here is Weiss says, I am going to intervene and change everything about explaining how the administration's ruling things, even though I'm not a lawyer and I get everything wrong. But you can't run the segment because of what I just said.
Sure. I mean, look, there's two sides to every question in court, but then there's a judge there to decide which side wins. If a judge has told us, why not report what the judge has said?
Right.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Brett Kavanaugh says it's okay for us to go into the second segment, so here we go. And that also means, by the way, we are free to beat up other podcasts if you want along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but only if they look foreign.
Right. This one here, I don't know about this Pod Save America. Well, it could be Pod Save Venezuela. I say we beat them up. Okay.
When they say America, do they mean United States of America or some other America?
Yeah,
like
Central
Latin
America. Pod Save that.
Yeah. So what the lawyers conclude with the piece, which I think is important, is the narrator states a simple truth in the now suppressed...
in the Canadian 60 Minutes.
In the Canadian 60 Minutes.
65
Namely,
minutes in Canada.
That the administration sent more than 200 men to CCOT without due process. And Barry Weiss doesn't even dispute that. What she affirmatively claims, however, is that there's an administration argument that why that's okay, which is garbage. I'm summarizing here. It's not grounded in the realities of the government's actual legal arguments, is what they say, or the facts.
Oh,
So
not only bad
basically,
argument.
she pulled it for editorial reasons that have nothing to do with the law. It's all politics. And it certainly has nothing to do with journalism. I have that not from these lawyers who are not journalists, but this journalist who is not a lawyer, Margaret Sullivan, who's writing in The Guardian, Barry Weiss yanking a 60-minute story is censorship by oligarchy. Weiss ought to cut her losses, greenlight the piece, try to start acting like an editor, not like a cog in the machine of authoritarian politics and oligarchy. You can read the rest of the article, but since that's what she was hired to do, that ain't happening, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I mean, yeah. And you mentioned, did you mention, I think you did. On the air, we were talking about, before the break, you mentioned the Streisand effect.
Yeah, everybody's watching the 60 Minutes piece now.
Yes. And for a minute, I actually thought, well, one of the 60 Minutes, I thought that when people were showing, I guess, bootlegged copies of it. So yeah, apparently, I don't really know how the, process works, but I guess they had sort of uploaded this thing maybe essentially to the satellite.
Twitter, and there it is. It goes viral. And
so internationally, Canada, plus I guess some other places where they can understand English well enough to watch 60 Minutes, they aired this thing, but not in the United States. So one, it's going to get out. And two, I thought for a minute that this was maybe some sort of almost like a publicity stunt of some sort, that maybe even Barry Weiss had put the thing on YouTube and made it, and tell her bosses, I've created the most watched 60 Minutes YouTube segment in history by telling everybody you're not allowed to see it. And they all rushed to see it, because finally when I ended up watching the segment, I realized, as a fairly
But our
informed
advertisers
viewer,
won't appreciate it because they didn't watch it on our channel.
Yeah, right. And then they'll say, do you remember why we hired you? Money? All right. Duh. We need money. But she could say, I'll monetize the YouTube channel.
No, I'm doing my job. I'm ruining 60 Minutes reputation.
Yeah, I guess there's that. That's true. It's a win-win for them, perhaps.
Like, why would you ever watch it from now on? Because, why would you trust me?
But having
I
watched
need to get
the
more
segments,
involved with how they do stories, obviously.
I guess I'm a little confused. As a fairly informed person, I think, I was sort of like, well, yeah, I actually kind of know that all this happened. I think it's been reported. And then it led me to, why are they so, what is it that they're hiding? Because this is all kind of out there already. It's nice compilation, and it's good to do on 60 Minutes because it wakes normies up to the fact that they might have missed along the way. But even for the administration, I was thinking, when they say, and then they shipped them without judicial process to CCOT and tortured them. Like, I figured in the White House, they're saying, yeah, we look great in this. This is exactly what we wanted. MAGA can't wait to hear more about how we beat and tortured immigrants. Why are we unhappy?
Let me give you an analogy here, if you will.
All right. If I will?
You may or may not know this.
No.
But Donald Trump is in the Epstein files.
What?
Now, why isn't the White House just saying, that's great, when you're a celebrity, they let you do everything?
That's true. But I don't know.
And actually what they're saying is, actually, we don't look so good here. Maybe we really should try to suppress this as best as we can.
That is interesting. I feel like Stephen Miller may have been happy and excited about the way he was being portrayed in this. He may have been in a minority, though.
He may have. He may be a minority of one. Everybody else is saying,
asshole. Right.
We get
we don't look good.
We get legal jeopardy here, and it turns out that based on the Supreme Court ruling in Illinois and the National Guard, they're not going to rule everything in our favor, and we're not even Trump. So I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. It was just a weird feeling all of a sudden to realize, what if there are normal people in the White House who are like, oh yeah, this is bad and it looks bad and it makes us unhappy, versus, hooray, they're finally telling everybody how badly we're torturing people, which has been our point all along. And I guess
when you're popular for whatever reason, you can land on an aircraft carrier and unfurl a banner that says mission accomplished, and expect that Chris Matthews is going to feel a warm, tingly feeling down his leg.
Although he wasn't popular.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, at the time he was.
Yes. Right. Okay. Now he's an unpopular. And later on in his presidency, he was unpopular.
Once he became popular, it was all downhill from there. They're just a straight line, drop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the point is, Donald Trump can do things when he's popular, but Donald Trump is not popular.
All right.
And so the idea that he's lying
When
about
you're a
stuff,
popular star, they
oddly
let you.
enough, to you and me, we know he does this because his lips are moving.
Right.
But normies don't necessarily know this. So 60 Minutes goes on national television with the most respected
Canadian
news
television.
broadcast in the history of America, arguably,
All right.
and says
You got to
Trump
have
is
the other
lying.
side, though. Yeah.
We
That's
asked
true.
the other side for comment, and they refused.
Right,
But
one
he's
side,
lying.
That one side
This
that thinks it isn't the
clearly
most
shows
influential.
there was no due process, whatever they say,
Right. Well, that's true.
and they don't like that.
All right. That is, yeah, that's weird. Especially, well, the whole
Trump
thing
is
is
in
bizarre.
the Epstein file. They don't like that either.
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking about Barry Weiss sitting there saying, well, they need to present the other side, but the other side has just presented itself. They just said,
Well, what's
we
the
don't like
difference
this.
between what Barry Weiss says and what Todd Blanche says on this topic? The answer is none, because she's not smart enough to think of this on her own. She probably got it from Blanche. So that's what a lawyer for Trump would say.
Yeah, you need to
which
wait.
is to say a DOJ employee, because they are acting as if they are Trump's lawyers, not America's Department of Justice.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I know what Weiss thinks. She thinks that the administration's point of view needs to be fully represented. Even if they refuse, I have to do their job for them.
Yeah, traditionally not the stance that 60 Minutes or any investigative reporting outfit has taken. They
Or the
like
DOJ,
to ask
but it is
for
what
a
it is these
comment,
days.
and then they say no, and then you go.
Right.
Sorry. All right. Well, she's there. This is not good for them. Okay. And they're wrong.
That's one of the reasons why the story won't go away. They were lying. They got caught lying. And they now want to continue to do without due process stuff. And the courts are starting to say, no, you can't. And so the predicate for, well, we don't necessarily believe everything that the administration says about what they're doing. Even Kavanaugh has come around to that. Why? Because of pieces like 60 Minutes, which clearly show they're lying.
Yes. Ooh, I think I'm going to sue CBS for, I guess, I don't know, say $50 million or so, because they promoted a story and then they told a different story entirely. They edited the show so that the story that they promoted on my TV didn't end up airing, and that's an interference. And I think Trump got a big bundle of cash for that. So I'm figuring I'm going to be rich soon.
Okay.
This is pretty good. The precedent is, if you promo this thing and then show something other than it, something edited that's different, you've defrauded me.
If you win, you be sure to double my salary. Okay?
I will. Yeah. You know what? I'll increase it by, well, I'll tell you what.
600%.
Yeah, I'll decrease it
That's
by
the going
600%,
rate.
as a matter of fact. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I got an attempt. I saw an attempt by Howard Lutnick to explain. He was confronted directly. Listen, if you reduce the price of drugs by 100%, that's all there is. If you reduce it by 200%, then you have to pay people to take those drugs off your hands.
Yeah.
How do you,
CNN guy said that to him.
yeah. Did you see the explanation? Is that now I
No, I didn't see. I didn't really care. so I
Okay,
didn't really see
it
what
was
he said in
kind of
response.
funny, and it was savable, but it's so funny to see someone like Howard Lutnick, who's a finance guy and a big finance big wheel, right, having to say the president demands that I give a very stupid backwards answer. I can't give it so
the answer is humma humma.
The explanation was, you see, if the drug costs $100 and you reduce the price, say, down to $13, then when it's at $13, if you compare it to the old price, $100, it would require you increasing the new price by 700% in order to get it back to the old price. So it's 700% lower. See? Which, no, it's 87% lower. Not, but he's like, well, you would have to increase the price 7 times in order to get it back to the old price. But, the guy doesn't say, well, why would you want to get it back to the old price? And how do you negotiate this with a drug supplier? we need a discount on this drug, right? Well, what are you looking for? What do you have in mind? That's how the negotiation goes.
And why would drug suppliers negotiate with you anyway? Because all you do is blow them out of the water.
That's true, too. But yeah, like if you then approach the negotiations by saying, well, listen, the price I'm looking for is whatever it would take to make the number such that if you reversed yourself and then increase the price by 7 times, it would equal the price that it is now. So what is that? I don't know. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Now, had he said, the savable way of saying this, I think, is other countries, in some countries, they charge less for some of these pharmaceuticals. And if you say, I want to be charged what that country is being charged, because we're paying 700% more than those guys, and I want to pay that price, not our price, that would make some sense. You're still only reducing the price of the drugs by 80%, but, you just skip, or if you want to have the 700% figure in there, you say, how come I pay 700% more than him? That would make sense.
Yeah.
But they make a finance
lying
genius
more
pretend
than you did yesterday. So forget it.
Yeah, there's no way you can explain this and use the word percent and be right. So don't.
And by the way, if there's other stories you're wondering what happened to them, like blowing out of the water people who were merely trying to survive,
that's just background
otherwise
noise
known as
now.
a war crime. Well, it's Christmas and Congress is away, so you're not going to hear about it till they get back. But when you get back, you're going to hear about it.
All right. I mean, I have seen some stories that in the last couple of days, it's the status quo. We continue to blow people up, and now we just erase. Remember when all lives mattered, right? Those guys. Yeah. The All Lives Matter people are just erasing lives now at whim. And next year when Congress comes back, they'll decide whether there's a constitution or not.
But they did stop doing that. They're doing piracy, but they stopped blowing people out of the water if they happen to be helpless.
Maybe just yesterday.
On the first strike because the lawyers got a hold of them and said, don't do that.
Yes, that's true. Although I think what they're doing is they're now saying when you're in a boat with the motor, you're not helpless. Then they are targeting boats with 2 people on them so they can kill them both with one shot and then say, no helpless people left.
You have to be better at your initial kinetic response.
Right. Murder them more efficiently earlier, like a Kavanaugh murder, essentially.
Well, that's a different issue. That's wrong, but it's a different issue than the absolute clear case of what happens with your double tap, as they like.
A different kind of case. They're both clearly in the wrong and both clearly in violation of international law.
And that has not gone away. It'll come back when Congress comes back.
Right.
We'll see whether
they
Mike
continue
Johnson
to blow
is
up the boats, though.
That's another one. Mike Johnson is getting all sorts of flack from his own caucus, saying, of course Johnson's useless. He's Trump's staff person. What a jerk.
Maybe if they blow up Noah's Ark, that would get his attention. Maybe. Then he'd be upset.
Yeah.
They'll have to do that.
Only if his son tells him that it's okay to watch.
Yeah. Well, there's only 2 of each animal on there anyway, so, they don't have to usually double tap. If we're after the giraffes, we could probably get them with 1 missile.
Right. No threesomes here. That's only 2 by 2. So Paul Kane says,
God says so.
Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported. Are you shocked? All told, Fed prosecutor wrote Trump flew 8 times between 93 and 96 in the Epstein jet. A steady drip, drip, drip on Trump Epstein, courtesy of James Comer.
Yeah. Where was he going? Because he had his own jet. So I'm a little curious about why would you fly on the other guy's jet so often if you have a jet?
Well,
unless
if you happen to be
island.
Going to your island, then,
Yeah,
maybe,
he keeps denying he went to the island,
Maybe that guy can take you, but otherwise sometimes you want favors.
So
the New York Times handles it thusly. Major release of Epstein documents contains mentions of Trump and Mar-a-Lago subpoenas. Most appearances of President Trump's name in the set of files just released came from news reports and other documents, but some deal directly with the relationship between the one-time friends. Things like pictures that Steve Bannon took of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, which were released, hidden, and then pulled back, and then released again for reasons unclear. Remember, they were all supposed to be here by last Friday. So any excuse that the Justice Department is using, they do have, if they pull something, 15 days apparently to explain why they did that.
Is that right?
But that's going to run out too. So Thomas Massey, who wrote the law, says you guys are in violation. I would guess, he's the expert. But there's an important
sometimes.
part about this that I want to mention. I saw somebody on Blue Sky say, hey, since they just used Adobe Acrobat to hide the PDF of names,
Yeah.
if you actually use Adobe Acrobat and search,
I don't.
all of a sudden you get the whole not redacted piece and you can read everything.
Yeah, well, Trump and
In other words,
paperwork,
they're
man.
incompetent. Okay, fine. But one of the things that was posted online about this is all about Alan Dershowitz.
Well, does this mean
And the
his
Boston
underwear
Globe
was
covered
redacted?
this, and I think it's important to go over this in terms of exactly what's going on here.
Okay, I'm picturing him in my head, and I was hoping you weren't going to go over this, but all right.
Okay. So
You.
when negotiating his plea deal in Florida in 2008, and this is where this is all going, how in 2007, 2008, in Florida, how did he get away with this? How did he get a plea deal that allowed him to work in his office during the day and then go back to prison at night and then do that for a couple of weeks and then he's off the hook? What's going on with that? Those documents are in this trove. And Julie K.
good.
Epstein notes that when you publish this stuff, the government just did, all of the names of the attorneys are blacked out. Why are they protecting the attorneys? This is garbage.
Well, the proceedings were held completely nude. I don't know if you know that. But
Well, so this is what the Boston Globe does, and I think it is a good summary of why you have to be careful with this. I'm not saying that Dershowitz's argument is correct or incorrect, but you can't just say, oh, look, his name is here. While negotiating his plea deal in Florida in 2008, Epstein mentioned funding grants at Harvard. He said his Florida Science Foundation had supported many initiatives. There's a full program of evolutionary dynamics, Neuroscience Institute of California, Physics Institute, MIT, Epstein said, which is true, MIT got in trouble for this.
Yeah.
Famed former Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, who was on Epstein's legal team in Florida,
Yeah.
who got him that plea deal, also surfaces many times in the newly released documents. In a 2016 legal filing, Dershowitz noted Epstein's ties to Larry Summers. At the time, Dershowitz was accused of sexually abusing one of Epstein underage survivors, allegations he has adamantly denied. Dershowitz, according to the DOJ documents, says he was being falsely accused because of his association with Epstein, something shared by many leading scholars.
Yes.
Meaning university people.
Right.
Okay.
Noam Chomsky.
So if you find documents, to summarize this, my understanding, if you find documents mentioning that Dershowitz was accused,
Yeah.
you also have to realize there may be other documents in there that we have or haven't seen that said, well, we looked into it and it's not true. You don't know.
They're sure.
You don't know.
Right. They may
Okay?
be on
The same
Mars
is-
and
the same is
Elon
true
has
with
to
Bill
get
Clinton.
them.
So what they do have is Dershowitz's argument. Jeffrey Epstein was heavily involved in funding academic research at Harvard and kept an office there, and he was consequently friendly with many academics, including David Gergen, Marvin Minsky, Larry Summers, Stephen Koslin, Henry Rosofsky, Howard Gardner, and Stephen Jay Gould, among others, Dershowitz said in the filing. Many of these academics engaged in the same behavior that apparently led an attorney to believe Virginia Giuffre's allegations that I had abused her, Dershowitz said.
Yeah.
All the evidence that Ms. Giuffre and her lawyers claim implicates me is equally applicable to dozens of other academics and public figures, Dershowitz said.
Yeah.
Dershowitz filed a defamation lawsuit against Giuffre's lawyers. She eventually withdrew her claim against him. The newly released DOJ filings also show that Dershowitz wrote to somebody in 2009 about Epstein's jail sentence. I greatly appreciate your willingness to call the sheriff and advise him your office would take no position on how he handled Epstein's sentence as long as he didn't get special treatment, but let's put any call off for a while, Dershowitz wrote. Point I'm trying to make here is that Dershowitz has an argument that, yes, my name is all over the place, but I was falsely accused, and when I tried to sue the lawyers about defamation, they withdrew their claim. So if you find my name on redacted data and then all of a sudden you find out it's about me, it doesn't say what you think it says. That's his argument.
Okay.
And so,
Well,
I've just seen on social media look, Dershowitz is all over this.
Well, he is.
Well, yeah, he
But
is.
so what? I mean, I understand why people are upset about that, and I understand why he's upset about it. However, I was going to say that to tell everybody what Dershowitz thinks about this, but I have to tell you, Greg, I am spiking the piece for now until we hear from people who believe that it does implicate Dershowitz.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
That's the new standard. I'm sorry. We can't
this
report
is the
your
new
stuff.
standard, and so your name may be all over this, and you may or may not have anything to do with it, but it shouldn't be hidden, and I think Bill Clinton has the right approach.
Yeah.
Oh, you see my name in this? Release everything.
Sure.
Because if the claim is maybe there's other stuff there that exonerates me, let's see it.
Yeah,
if you're
maybe
saying there's other stuff in there that implicates me, let's see it. Let's see it all. And until or unless you do that, one has to assume that Trump and Dershowitz's name are all over this, and that has implications.
I am sure that Dershowitz's name is all over it, and it's all over it for many different reasons. And some of them, I guess, might even exonerate him. And if there are ones that don't exonerate him, I guess we'll see those too. Or after all, he kept his underwear on the whole time, which is super exonerating.
Now, when I find it confusing, I turn to the expert, in this case, Julie K. Brown.
All right, Julie.
Who's made a career of covering this with the Miami Herald.
Yeah.
And she writes on her Substack, Donald Trump's Epstein files, the president's name is mentioned multiple times. Let me start with what's new today.
Yeah, all right.
A couple of them were up all night, my colleagues at the Miami Herald, that is, pouring through the massive files.
Mm-hmm.
And to learn, among other things, that the document showed that DOJ was caught off guard upon learning that Trump had flown in Epstein's plane more times than they were aware of, and that on one flight, he and Epstein were accompanied by a 20-year-old girl. On two others, he was accompanied by two women whom prosecutors noted were potential witnesses in a criminal case against Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what else we learned.
What?
The DOJ has identified 10 co-conspirators or suspects in Epstein case, including Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted, French modeling scout Jean-Luc Brunel. I don't remember what happened to him. Did he commit suicide? Something happened.
Oh, I don't know.
Billionaire Lex Wexner.
Probably. All right, maybe something.
Not the guy from WKRP in Cincinnati, but the billionaire who used to own Victoria's Secret.
Right.
One of Epstein's former clients who also once owned Victoria's Secret. New files released Tuesday suggest SEC was investigating whether Epstein had failed to register as an investment advisor. That's Securities and Exchange Commission. Has nothing to do with a football conference. Investment advisors managing more than $100 million in assets are required to register with the SEC and file annual reports. FBI received several tips about the Epstein case, including one from Epstein's brother Mark, who noted on a report that he believed his brother was killed in his jail cell because he was about to name names. And he also claimed without evidence that Trump authorized Epstein's murder.
Oh.
I'm just saying, that's the kind of unauthorized, unclear,
but
without evidence
he
stuff
had his
that's out
underwear
there.
On. Right.
Yeah. Another unsubstantiated tip to the FBI, a Texas limo driver claimed he met a woman who said she was raped by Trump and Epstein. It's not clear if the FBI followed up. Trump has denied all of this, of course. And then the Justice Department said some of the documents contained untrue and sensationalist claims. We know this. But one of the most important parts of the scandal involved questions about Epstein's 2007 secret plea deal. That's the one that involved Dershowitz, which gave him and four of his co-conspirators immunity from federal prosecution. Emails and letters pertaining to that investigation are heavily redacted, including the names of the prosecutors who made key decisions about the deal. So that's what she's honing in on. You know, all this mentioning of other stuff is nice, it's salacious, it may or may not mean anything, but if you go down and drill down to the actual decisions made at the time he got his sweetheart deal, what was going on with that? That's what she's honing in on. And I think that's
everyone
good,
wants to know
important.
that. It is.
Alex Acosta, the U.S. attorney in Miami, who approved the plea bargain, testified in 2019 before federal investigators, telling them that there were concerns about the victim's credibility. He had to be corrected at least twice for calling the victims women when they, in fact, were underage girls.
Yeah, true.
Right. Documents released this week also showed Florida prosecutors had plenty of evidence to support the girls' stories, including bank records, The DOJ has not yet explained why it redacted the names of federal prosecutors, but missed redacting the names of so many victims.
Yes.
Victims remain frustrated, angry, re-traumatized, and about a system of justice that failed to protect the victims of monsters like Epstein. I'm still going through the massive files. Give me time. One thing she discovered recently, employees in Epstein's Island told her, Julie K. Brown, that tons of boxes, cameras, videotapes, and documents were long packed up or destroyed by the time the FBI showed up on Little St. James, Epstein's Island, in 2019. Now, apparently, according to the New York Times, the FBI never searched Epstein's other offices.
Oh, well, you know. The warrant was for this one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can't help it.
So there's a lot going on, but if you want to know how come this lasted so long and they didn't collect evidence, you know, it's like the Trump Mar-a-Lago classified document stuff that Jack Smith wants to tell us about. Trump has Bedminster and a whole bunch of other offices where every one of them searched. We don't know.
No.
I think the answer is no.
I think so, too. We certainly would have heard about it. By the way, you were right. Jean-Luc Brunel did die, allegedly, by suicide. Yeah. Just point out, and a hanging at that. So I don't know whether there's any connection or not. I would say Alan Dershowitz still says he had his underwear on the whole time, and so therefore everything is fine. I was just his lawyer, and we were just trying to make a deal. And then, I don't know, the story about my underwear, I'm not sure why that's in there exactly. But whatever it is, I kept it on the whole time.
Right. I mean, basically what he's saying
usually
is
you do
the fact
court.
that I don't have any ethics is not the same thing as being a child molester.
No, it's not. However, they do occasionally go hand in hand. And if you can prove that, then fine. And in the meantime, what he means to say is don't reach the definitive conclusion that I'm a child molester. You may suspect it. And you may be right.
Well, I don't think anything's going to happen with Dershowitz that we don't already think and we don't already, have come to conclusions to ourselves.
He's not.
I'm really interested in this 2007 plea deal.
Sure, everybody is.
I really hope that they can drill down more and get the government to justify why you're blocking off the names of the people who were in the Justice Department who gave the sweetheart deal. We know it was Alex Acosta, but who else? Yeah. And are they still working there?
And are they working on this case now
to redact stuff? And are they the ones that redacted their own names?
That could be. I slipped. Right. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, with Acosta on the record as having been the U.S. attorney, I don't know who gains much by hiding. And, I mean, I think there's a roster somewhere who were his deputies.
Stuff is going to come out.
Yeah.
So they're losing this.
Also, they redacted it
if
wrong.
they thought this would make the story go away, I would say no.
Yeah. How come that's not one of the documents that you can just copy and paste and find out what's under the redaction? So whoever redacted the names of the lawyers out did it the right way, and whoever redacted the names of the victims out did it the wrong way. Oh, no. Well, Merry Christmas, Greg. See you after. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I forget exactly how we got to the subject. I know Greg was reading us the names of people who appeared in files. Jean-Luc Brunel being one of them, and somehow he remembered that Jean-Luc Brunel, in fact, allegedly died by suicide in 2022. And I'm not certain. I don't, I mean, his name rings a bell, and I'm sure that it's because he ran in the same circles as Epstein and Trump. But when I say that he ran in the same circles, I guess I mean I should also be including, what's his name? John, I've already just blanked on his name. Casablancas and Paolo Zampolli. Casablancas is dead. Brunel is dead. Epstein is dead. Zampolli is not dead. Trump is not dead. But the reason I focus on those guys, if you remember, if it rings a bell for you, the Casablancas name and the Zampolli name, and I've told you before, both Trump and Epstein both emulated those guys. They understood them to have the right kind of racket going on. What you do if you want underage girls to be around you all the time is you start a modeling agency, because for some reason in the 1980s and 90s and before and even currently, I guess, but maybe to lesser extent because everybody's sensitive about being imprisoned and having to hang yourself. But the way to do that, there were a couple of ways to do it. One is to just like buy a trench coat and walk around naked and expose yourself to teenage girls and be a disgusting flasher in the slums of whatever city you pick it. And the other way is to do it and not get arrested or be blamed for it. And the way to do that is to say, well, there's a legitimate reason why, A, I have a bunch of teenage girls around me. One would be I run an orphanage, but no, that's not what's happening. And where are all the boys? What's going on here? 2 would be I'm a pervert. 3 would be I run a legitimate business over here. And the business is not so much trafficking young girls, or I should say, trafficking young girls. I'm trafficking young girls. Yeah, I see how the emphasis makes a difference here. Basically, it's like the same conceit as running an escort service. Like, look, all I'm doing is arranging dates for 2 willing adult partners. What happens afterwards is your business. I don't want to know about it unless it's you got money for what happened, in which case, if you don't give me 80% of it, I'll knock your teeth down your throat. But other than that, I don't want to know about it. It's a legitimate business. Similarly, what's happening here is the same thing, although minus the part where there's 2 consenting adults involved. One is a consenting adult, and the other is a trafficked underage girl, and the guy who did it is a criminal. So then, you do want to know about those things. But also, I'm taking 80% of your earnings on top of that. So the cover was, if I start a modeling agency, in the 1980s and 1990s, it was understood to be the case that it was okay to take a 14-year-old girl and paint her up to look like she might be 18, but hint, hint, she's really not, and then take pictures of her in various states of undress and say, it's modeling. Our society values youth and beauty. That's not my fault. What are you looking at me for? It's society that wants this. I just want to be able to see what it looks like before they take the picture and she's still putting the dress on. That's not a crime. It is a crime. It is a problem. Well, it's just the mechanics of the thing. And Trump's conceit was, well, I'm putting on a beauty pageant with 14 and 15-year-old girls. And they got to change into bathing suits and evening gowns and various other costumes. And that changing has to go on in a theater. And I've rented the theater, so I'm going in there. That was his thing. But he also said, the pageant only happens once a year. That's not enough for me. You guys have it all figured out. And, it's all the same girls. Who's competing in beauty pageants? It's girls who know that they have something special going on in the beauty department and probably are trying to become models. And that's usually the payoff of participating in one of these beauty pageants is you get noticed and you get hired as a model. So, it was a little bit of vertical integration. And what if, look at the things that these girls are willing to do in order to possibly land a modeling contract. For one thing, they let a dirty old man like me walk into the dressing room while they're naked. So what if I held the leverage coming and going, so to speak? What if I also ran a modeling agency? Because one of the things that goes on, what if I bring them into the pageant? Once a year, I get to look at them naked while they're changing. And Jean-Luc Brunel and, Jeffrey Epstein and Paolo Zampolli and John Casablancas, they could all say, they come to the event. Sometimes they're the judges in the pageant. Sometimes they're my guests. We all go into the dressing room together. But then I noticed that they had the real power because they were the ones saying, all year round, I'm going to make you a model. So you should be beholden to me all year round, whereas you're only beholden to this guy once a year. And then Donald Trump said, I need to get in on this action. What if I have the pageant in February, but in April, I want naked girls around me? Or someone else that I need to influence, I'm trying to bribe. They want naked girls around them. I want to be able to provide that and not pay a finder's fee to Jeffrey or Jean-Luc or Paolo or John. Or again, if I just want the girls to be around me, I want them there on my say-so. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my own modeling agency. Why? Why not? I don't know. I started a vodka business and I don't drink. I started a steak business when I found out how much steak I was eating, and I started a golf business. I started a steak business. I started a water business. I'm selling watches now, or cell phones, sneakers, Bibles, hats. He just gets into whatever he thinks he can make money with. Why not also start a modeling agency? What was weird was, Donald Trump, I'm a businessman. I build buildings. I'm very aesthetic, though. Whether that aesthetic is battleships or naked girls, I'm very aesthetic. So why shouldn't I have a modeling agency? And also I can control these women. I can bring them in. And by the way, I can steal them out of Eastern Europe, promise them work in America, then confiscate their passports and make them live in a dormitory style in a brownstone in the village so that they're close to me. A trick I picked up from Jeffrey Epstein, who is a financier and supposedly a brilliant one at that and a mathematician. So why not also start a modeling agency? Jean-Luc Brunel, at least, was sort of in that business. Casablancas, that was his business. Zampolli, I don't know what he was doing, but he started one too. So there you have it. I just found it interesting that if you read 2 seconds on Jean-Luc Brunel over at Wikipedia, you'll learn what? Jean-Luc Didier Henri Brunel was a French model scout. He gained prominence by leading the international modeling agency Karen Models. It's Karin. I don't know if they say Karine or anything like that, but Karen Models, which is interesting. This is if you want a 14-year-old girl to go into a Starbucks and ask for the manager, I guess call Karen Models. Sorry, Karens. He also founded MC2 Modeling Management or Model Management, which is always an interesting question. I mean, some people can say to themselves that they're serial entrepreneurs. If you maybe Karen Models was somebody else's agency and then he started his own, called it MC2. Very frequently what you find out is I was working at a very high level for a Karen modeling agency, and then the actual owner said, hey, he's perving on all the girls. You'll have to be fired. But if I publicly fire you and it becomes known that Karen Models is the place where they were molesting the girls, I won't be able to sign any more girls, even if I don't want to molest them. So this needs to be handled quietly. So you leave and start MC2 Model Management, which he probably did with all his contacts and all the money he made in elite modeling world at Karen Models, right? No, he still needed money. Where did he get the money? Jeffrey Epstein. So there's the circle being closed there. By the way, he was also the subject of an investigation in 1988, a investigative reporter looking into him. Where? 60 Minutes. If you think that has anything to do with anything. So there you go. Subject of a 60 Minutes investigation in 1988. They didn't spike the story, apparently. Brunel faced allegations of sexual assault spanning 3 decades. The free love decades. Brunel came under scrutiny for his ties to Epstein, with whom he worked in the early 2000s up until 2015. Brunel was accused of grooming. No, not that. Grooming young females and of taking part in alleged sex trafficking operations involving Epstein. Wow. In 2019, the French National Police launched an investigation on Brunel after he went into hiding following Epstein's death. So what was he afraid of? I don't know, but it ended up happening to him, which is weird. He went into hiding following Epstein's death. He was arrested on December 16th, 2020, and French prosecutors charged him with the rape of minors. However, he hanged himself in his cell before his trial could proceed, which is odd how they all followed one another in all practices, not just starting your own modeling agency and trafficking the girls in it, but apparently hanging yourself in your jail cell. By the way, as I mentioned, John Casablancas, he's dead too. Anyway, there you have it. So, I don't know, that seems to be one of the best practices among these guys is if you like being handed trafficked young girls by your friends, but you're tired of understanding yourself to be now beholden to them, or you're subject to blackmail by them, and you still want to, but you don't want to give up the naked young girls, the answer is start a modeling agency. It's a little weird. And what's also a little weird is before Trump started his own modeling agency, I guess there was a brief period. Sometimes the men come into these circles thinking, well, I'll hang out around these models and then maybe I'll date them. I don't know whether they necessarily go into the whole thing thinking, initially, like your businessman entering into these circles and saying, well, the great thing is you can just hold one of them as a sex slave and rape them all the time. And I guess that's why I'm going to this party. I think they assume that there'll be some like pursuit and wooing going on. And then they find out, oh, actually, it's just a matter of money. But I'll be blackmailed by the guy who gives me these girls. And then that's when they say, I'm tired of all this blackmail potential. I got to start my own agency. And then I won't be subject to blackmail and I can blackmail other people instead. Unless they keep their underwear on the whole time and say there was nothing unethical about it. Then I can't blackmail them somehow. It's against the rules. So anyway, I don't know what to tell you. These people are, they're insane in their view of the world, and we can only unravel this a little bit at a time, and most people have a hard time, difficulty believing that now distinguished business people or even presidents of the United States could be involved in such things, but they are. Anyway, there's some other items that we ought to add to the discussion for today. Let's see. I want to sort of scroll through all these things. Oh, yes, right. I think I wanted to continue with the reading of Brandy Zadrozny's report from AmericaFest. Did we not get all the way through that one? I have a feeling that we didn't. But it was her story about the infighting going on and see who's stabbing who most effectively in the back to become the heir apparent to Charlie Kirk. Will it be his widow, Erika Kirk, although everybody is accusing her of being maybe, I don't know what, but maybe not have paid that much attention, say, to how much how the enterprise worked, and so that she would be in less than an optimal position to operate it herself in his name. And also, even if she's really, really good at it, isn't there an opportunity to push her out by accusing her of being incompetent at it, and for me to vacuum up all the dollars instead? Although I'm trying to figure out, I'll have to scroll down to see whether we made it all the way to the end of this thing or not. I don't think we made it all the way there. The question is, where did we stop? And it's not entirely clear here, but okay, let's see. I know we were talking about the interviews that Erika was willing to take. That is to say, all of them from Fox News and almost none from anywhere else. And the rise of Candace Owens. There we are. The most prominent among, I guess, the pretenders to the throne, you might say. Candace Owens, whom Charlie hired in 2017 as TPUSA's Director of Urban Engagement. I love that they put that in there. Well, what are we going to do with this darker-skinned hire that we got? I know. We can make her the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Oh, no, wait a minute. I mean, we're not the president. Urban Engagement. Because, well, come on. I mean, I guess they're all subject to the same thing. Anyway, so she's hired as TPUSA's Director of Urban Engagement, and Candace, it says, has drawn millions of daily views to her sprawling theories, which involve Turning Point staff these days, the FBI, the French Foreign Legion, the Israeli government, and a network of Egyptian planes. Really? This month, Owens called TPUSA a God-forsaken company and encouraged its donors to request a refund because they're basically damned to hell. So I don't know where you go for the refund, God or hell. I'm not sure who handles the refunds, but look into it. These conspiratorial claims and their creators fueled the tension hanging over AmericaFest and led directly to a series of public spats. In his opening night address, the Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro accused Owens and Tucker Carlson of poisoning the movement with conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism, as opposed to just the conspiracy theories, which is what Ben was poisoning things with. But Ben is Jewish, so he wasn't poisoning them with anti-Semitism, except to the extent that he was piggybacking on the, oh, by the way, if you don't support Israel the same way I support Israel, then you're an anti-Semite, even if you also are Jewish. But now, of course, the scorpion is stinging him on the way as well, as Trump likes to frame it. Okay, so Ben Shapiro accuses them of dealing in conspiracy theories, which he likes, but theories that he doesn't like, including the one that says, as anti-Semites, that they believe that he's the one at the heart of the evil in the world. You know, Owens, Shapiro said, was, quote, vomiting hideous and conspiratorial nonsense about Kirk's death. Carlson, Ben says, committed an act of moral imbecility. Ooh, not that. Last month when he hosted on his podcast, Evil Troll Nick Fuentes. Of course, Nick Fuentes, the far-right streamer, whom former Vice President Mike Pence once described as a white nationalist, an anti-Semite, and a Holocaust denier. But you don't have to take Mike Pence's word for it. All of that is easily discernible just by asking Nick Fuentes whether any of it's true, and he'll say it is. Charlie Kirk, it is said here, despised Nick Fuentes, Shapiro said. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. When it was his turn, Carlson dismissed Shapiro and mocked the idea that Charlie would have supported deplatforming anyone. Megyn Kelly, another former Fox News host targeted by Shapiro, said after his speech, I don't think we're friends anymore. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon called Shapiro a cancer who cared only about Israel and suggested he was envious of Charlie. So I guess this is maybe an attempt at the beginning of the end for Ben Shapiro. I'm okay with that. Owens, who did not even attend the conference, by the way, baselessly suggested on X that Shapiro's speech proved Israel's involvement in Charlie's death. I think it does not prove that. But she called Shapiro a worm and a miserable imp and a belly creature. And I'm not even sure what any of those things actually are supposed to mean, but I guess it's fun to figure out. All right, well, they what sort of things do they say about each other? They don't say things as blunt as
bald asshole.
Instead, they say, you're a belly creature. Oh, no, not a belly creature. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, I can't believe he's in this too, known for perpetuating popular lies about, let's say, Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting and other things, pretty much everything. He spoke against Owens's spiraling theories, because they compete with his, I guess. It's just so damaging, and when you investigate it, it's so crazy. I can't believe Jones says this. He also wasn't present at this year's AmericaFest, by the way, but he posted those comments on X on Saturday. I'm worried about her and her mind. I'm not, but, you know. Back at the convention, young conservative activists gathered at breakout sessions to refocus the conversation on the enemies that united them, like Antifa and the godless, like just generally, I guess. But the MAGA dogfight seemed to swallow all the oxygen at AmericaFest. It's weird, said Jack Posobiec, a Turning Point personality as well, and a former alt-right activist, although he's still an alt-right activist. Come on. Known for spreading conspiracy theories, who spoke to MS Now as he waited to go live on Newsmax. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. That it was weird, that is. It is weird. That's true. And I'd be lying if I said that. Yeah, so what else is new? In the end, amid all the infighting, Erika Kirk was left to mother the movement. Feels like a Thanksgiving dinner when your family's hashing out the family business, she offered from the stage on Friday. On Sunday, the final day of the event, Vance took the stage to the Hollies' Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress, which is, of course, how Erika Kirk happened to have been dressed, so maybe that was a little weird and gross. He cast Charlie as a builder and a unifier and called on the MAGA movement to stop tearing itself apart. I didn't bring a list of conservatives to denounce or deplatform, Vance said. We have far more important work to do than canceling each other. By the way, he's supposed to be busy being vice president of the United States, if you think that's a busy job. Vance seemed to find some common ground with the conspiratorial forces plaguing the movement, however. He claimed that he, too, had spent sleepless nights rewatching Charlie Kirk's death online, just don't do it, and going down internet rabbit holes. Again, he's supposed to be busy as vice president of the United States, so this is not great. Ultimately, he said Charlie's death was an irreplaceable loss, but if conservatives were going to win in the future, he said they'd only win together. I don't think that's super revealing, except finding out that Vance, I don't think he's really spending any time rewatching this thing. I think he just thinks that the activists at AmericaFest wanted to hear that, so he said it. But anyway, the bigger point was to illustrate the fact that there's a larger MAGA civil war going on. It looks in the early going like Ben Shapiro is the one who gets stabbed to death on the basis of anti-Semitism and centering it once again on for the online alt-right, which was a problem very early on, right after Trump's first election. And then, I don't know, everybody sort of forgot about it for some reason. Not everybody. I mean, lots of investigative reporters were documenting it all along, and they're now throwing their hands in the air saying, what was I doing? What am I, chopped liver? I've been documenting this since forever. They even in this piece, I mean, I don't want to critique Brandy Zadrozny's reporting here. She's typically very good. But I guess I could see other reporters saying, what are you doing? Like, for instance, quoting Jack Posobiec and all of this, like he's one of the guys, like, I'm just sidelined and all this. I'm just observing the infighting. He's been mixed up in this nonsense since forever. This is his stock in trade. But he kind of got quoted as if he were an elder statesman of the movement and not one of these online activists who stoke this kind of crazy conspiracy theory stuff all the time. I mean, Alex Jones is being quoted as, it's Curtis Owen, she's out of her mind. I mean, it's Alex Jones. I don't know. I don't think that's Brandy's intent here. It's just weird the way it has come across. So, I don't know. Maybe she was just following Barry Weiss's advice and saying, you got to get both sides on the record here. Both sides of the civil war of crazy, as opposed to, let's talk to some people who are normal about how crazy these people are. There's two flavors of crazy at the moment. That's the story, as opposed to, we got to talk to both flavors. And one of them says, we're not crazy anymore. I don't know how that's supposed to work. Okay. At least we finished that story. And there are a couple other things here, too. I'm going to have to sort of scroll all the way through. Maybe this is a good time to pick up this Guardian piece, which I think, as I recall, I saw shared on Blue Sky the other day, along with one of those notes saying, hey, again, this is stuff we've been covering since forever, but we now have people rediscovering it or discovering it for the first time and saying, look what I've uncovered. And these guys have been around since forever. But, I guess there's also a part of me and a part of them probably too that says, well, better that there be renewed attention than that attention be lost. In this case, the Guardian's Ben Makuch, Makuch, my best guess, now reporting on another name we have to add to the rogues gallery, I guess. Another neo-Nazi terror group stepping up U.S. operations as the FBI pulls back its operations, is what's meant to be understood here. That is, its operations monitoring neo-Nazis. So they're filling the vacuum. The FBI is busy chasing what it says is immigrants or gang members, or both. So that leaves plenty of room for domestic terrorists. Online activity shows the base. Remember way back when we were saying, hey, it's weird that this new alt-right militant activist group is calling itself the base, because that's what Al-Qaeda allegedly means in Arabic. But it's a very purposeful thing. They know that. They're looking to scare you. They're not chiefly mainstream Republicans who are also anti-Muslim, and so therefore would never choose the name Al-Qaeda in English. But anyway, online activity shows that the base, headed by alleged Russian asset Ronaldo Nazaro, sees U.S. and Ukraine, oddly enough, what a pair, as key centers. What's happening here? I know we're going to hit the break in a minute, but we'll get us started and come back afterwards. Amid high-profile arrests in its Spanish cell, that is a cell in Spain, not just one that speaks Spanish here in the United States. Amid high-profile arrests in its Spanish cell, the American-born and designated, for whatever that means, neo-Nazi terrorist group, the Base, once a major preoccupation of FBI counterterrorism efforts during a Democratic administration, I guess, has all but faded from U.S. headlines. They used to get headlines, now they don't. But a flurry of online activities shows the group is still active stateside and considers the U.S. an operational nerve center. Not certain what that means, but they do consider it that. Headed by Ronaldo Nazzaro, it's Nazzaro, an ex-Pentagon contractor turned alleged Russian intelligence asset. We should probably be keeping an eye on that situation. The Base has been busy of late pursuing European expansion. Besides its heavily armed members in Spain, its Ukrainian wing, it has one, is linked to multiple acts of terrorism inside the country and claimed the high-profile July assassination of an intelligence officer in Kyiv. Pro-Russian paramilitaries. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, $1 crisp bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I got to do the scary work before the big holiday break of telling you, I guess, who to keep an eye on to pull the next neo-Nazi act of terror, whether it's here or abroad. And that it's all connected, and that they are reveling, apparently, and calling themselves the Base, which is hilarious to them. It's supposed to be frightening, and I guess it is, to the rest of us. So, again, Ronaldo Nazzaro, who's got a gigantic beard in this picture that they've got of him here. I guess he thinks that's part of the joke, too. The Base, get it? And I also have a giant Al-Qaeda beard. Headed by Ronaldo Nazzaro, the ex-Pentagon contractor turned alleged Russian intelligence asset. They have been pursuing European expansion and doing so in Ukraine as pro-Russian paramilitaries. So something, political union with Russia to own the globalists, once again. The Base's online footprint also paints a picture of a more careful yet active American presence. Videos from November show masked men shooting military-style rifles and pistols in what they claim is an Appalachian forest. Another June photo from the same Appalachian cell shows 5 armed men in skull masks, their favorite, holding rifles and brandishing the Base's black flag, while a cell from the Mid-Atlantic captures 3 members performing Sieg Heil salutes, i.e., Nazi salutes, stiff-arm fascist salutes, with another from the Midwest showing 2 men firing pistols. In the shifting political climate of the second Trump administration, where the FBI has openly rerouted resources away from investigations of far-right extremists, the Base appears free to organize and prepare for their stated objective of fomenting an armed insurgency against the U.S. government. I guess that means better armed than the January 6th insurgency against the U.S. government, which has all been pardoned, of course. At the same time, its recruitment has continued to funnel through a Russian email address and has not ceased since the 2020 FBI crackdown against it, somehow, for some strange reason. Nazaro has also matched this new American law enforcement environment with emboldened rhetoric, in case you were wondering what he was doing. Our long-term strategic goal is to accomplish something similar to what Al-Qaeda and IS, Islamic State, accomplished in Syria, bragged Nazaro in an audio recording that he released in early December over a Russian-controlled app, in case you were wondering, reviewed by The Guardian. Form an organized, armed insurgency to take and hold territory. I don't know whether it's going to be Appalachian territory or not. And establish a white homeland which we control and govern. Now, back in the day, I think there were the OG original gangster white nationalists don't usually say things like, sure, a guy named Ronaldo Nazaro can be part of our white homeland, but I guess he thinks so. Nazaro concludes in the same recording how only two traditional white nations currently possess all of these necessary prerequisites: Ukraine and the United States. I guess that is the prerequisites being lots of guns and enough latitude that we think we can do things like take and hold actual territory. Everywhere else, I guess they would do something about it. In the United States, you used to think people would stop that sort of thing from happening. Oh, as far back as, let's say, Whiskey Rebellion, Shays Rebellion, the Civil War, whatever. But I guess we're just not as interested in that anymore. Stephen, and I don't know how you pronounce this. Is it Ray? R-A-I? I mean, it could be Rye, but anyway, Stephen Ray will say, an analyst for the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, who monitors the base's every online move. So someone is doing this. It's just not the FBI. Described with alarm how Nazaro's latest words and European actions illustrate its growing ambitions of openly fomenting new U.S. operations. Nazaro's recent statements mark a troubling escalation. I'd say that's right. That has been unfolding over the past several months, maybe longer, said Ray, who pointed out that Nazaro initially suggested over the summer Ukraine would be the only country where he was sanctioning actual attacks. More recently, however, Nazaro has explicitly expanded this endorsement of violence to other contexts, including ours, the United States, where he has called for the establishment of some so-called acceleration teams aimed at destabilizing society and weakening government authority through attacks on critical infrastructure. In a post on vContacte, it's V and then it's appended onto the word contacte, which is Russian for, I guess that root makes some sense, contact, right? V-K-O-N-T-A-K-T-E, vContacte. It's a Russian knockoff of Facebook. Facebook is easier for English speakers to say, where it maintains an account, the base. The base was explicitly calling for cells to use, quote, targeted attacks on essential infrastructure and resources. You're not supposed to be able to say that stuff, which could contribute to the political fragmentation of the country over time if the attacks remain consistent. So they're not super ambitious. We're going to take over everybody with one attack. They realize, I guess, that they're in for the long haul. They also realize that you would be in trouble if you said that on Facebook, which is why they say it on vContacte, which is why Russia's not your friend. Stop thinking it. Its Ukraine cell, the base that is seen within the base, the greater base, as a model of active insurgency against the Ukrainian government, which is more preoccupied with resisting the full-scale Russian invasion. In other words, behind the scenes, behind the lines, saboteurs, pro-Russian. In the U.S. homeland, however, with access to firearms and rugged wilderness terrain, I don't know how we got to that mispronunciation, but the combination of swimming and guns and having rugged wilderness terrain, Nazaro and the base believe the same opportunity exists to do what they want to do in Ukraine as here. There, the distraction is Russian invasion. Here, the distraction is people who are heavily armed wearing masks and giving Nazi salutes, that could be Starbucks, but it isn't. It's out in the woods, and who cares what's going on out in the woods? I guess that's the thinking. Europol and Spanish police, who executed the raid against the Spanish cell in early December, did not say if American authorities had any contact with them during or before the takedown of the base. Several sources have told The Guardian that the FBI under Kash Patel is intentionally looking away from far-right extremism, even openly mocking what is statistically the most dangerous domestic terrorist threat facing the U.S. as part merely of a woke agenda. But Ray thinks Nazzaro's calls for violence against Americans could act as a wake-up call to authorities, if they were interested, who might now have the legal space to crack down on what is designated a terrorist organization in several allied countries. By providing base operatives in the United States with explicit strategic guidance centered around violence, Nazzaro may have inadvertently increased the group's exposure to intervention by law enforcement, he said. There's reason to believe the base has also become a broader intelligence and security target in countries with capable spy agencies willing to devote resources to disrupting it. With legitimate questions surrounding its links to Russian sabotage operations, a top security concern among European countries, the base is no longer considered an obscure American problem. Along with Spain, there were recent arrests of members in the Netherlands, Belgium, and the United Kingdom, with the European Union declaring it a terrorist group in the League of Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, whose name they stole. Nazzaro's recent audio clip also notably mentions how he saw the instability in Canada or the European Union as promising for the base's recruitment in his first explicit mention of Canadian activities in years. The former Canadian cell leader of the base, whose name is Patrick Matthews, there's no C in it, just Patrik, is currently sitting in a U.S. prison for his part in illegally entering the U.S. and plotting a 2020 terrorist attack on a Virginia gun rights rally. I remember this one, meant to incite a neo-Nazi revolution. But they caught him beforehand and he's in jail, and Trump hasn't figured out that he's supposed to pardon him yet, and maybe he doesn't want to pardon him because he's in jail for violating U.S. immigration law. But that would only make Trump a hypocrite, and he's not going to want to be not going to want to have any part in that. So I don't know. I guess basically if it ever comes around that another round of weirdo pardons has come about, and it is Christmas and Christmas Eve, it might be just the time for Trump to start pardoning people left and right again. If we hear that Patrick Matthews is among them, then we know he's making a serious mistake. Or not, but instead planning something big. Okay, so just something to keep in mind as the holiday break comes up, and you probably will be here. I wouldn't put it past Trump. I'm not suggesting anything he hasn't already thought of. I'm sure that the Christmas break could be a nice setting, in his view, for another round of reckless pardons about which he knows nothing. All right. There's a couple of other strange things happening, I guess, and I'm not sure which one we can get on the air and which we can't. Some of them I know are too long for this stuff, but maybe good things to read for another day. But I might want to put on the record this relatively short piece. This happened the other day and we didn't make any note about it. That happens a lot. But where is this from? Politico. Okay. Trump administration halts offshore wind projects from Virginia to New England in a major blow to clean power. They're against that just generally. And Trump has used every excuse under the sun to fight against wind power. Allegedly, the initial impetus for all of this was they had some offshore wind turbines in Scotland, which are visible from his golf course there, and he views them as an eyesore. And so he says, well, I don't know. I guess he originally figured out my complaining about The View isn't going to be particularly convincing to people. What do environmentalists want out of this? Cheap, clean energy? Sure. And it does produce that. And my complaining about The View isn't going to convince them. But they also like whales, right? Save the whale. These are save the whales types, right? His 1980s brain has got them pegged as that, and I'm sure that they are. I'm sure concerned about whales. Well, what if I told them that windmills, well, on land, they're killing birds, bald eagles even. And what if you're not American and you don't care about bald eagles? Well, they care about bald eagles. They like birds in other countries. But if they're out over the ocean, we have the opportunity of saying they're damaging whales, even though there's also birds in the ocean. They could be saying it's killing seagulls or albatross. But I don't know. Maybe he figured bald eagles and whales, those are things that famous people care about. So they probably care about them too. They give whales ear cancer. What? No, well, maybe humans get ear cancer, but maybe also, anyway, they're driving the whales crazy. And when you see a beached whale, it's because he heard noise from a windmill. And that's not particularly convincing. I don't think it's working with people. So they're going to try something else, and something that other people might care about. And one of them is somehow it is bad for national security to have windmills. How do you get to that? We'll build a reason. But in the meantime, just listen, it's national security. The move is yet another escalation from President Donald Trump, says the subheader, who has vowed to throttle wind projects despite his party's worries about electricity affordability. Yeah, it's part of an affordability agenda. But also, of course, Trump of late has also become heavily invested in other alternative fuel sources. I think some fusion power exploration outfits that he's got some of his money wrapped up in. So I guess there's a financial incentive to downplay the impact of other alternative clean energy sources as well. And here's the story. Kelsey Tamburino. I like that. Hey, Kelsey Tamburino, play a song for me. It fits. Benjamin Starro is the other writer here. He is, of course, a man of constant sorrow. We'll just throw that in there. Make everything music. Hey, Mr. Tamburino, and or possibly Ms. Tamburino. And Benjamin of constant sorrow. What's happening? The Trump administration on Monday, and we missed it until today, Wednesday, ordered a halt to 5 offshore wind projects currently being built in the United States. A major new attack on a power-generating industry, even as voters fret about climbing electricity prices, as all of our electricity is stolen by the AI bros. Oops, I added that part. The Interior Department announced it is pausing all leases for large-scale offshore wind projects that are currently under construction, effective immediately. So lots of money being wasted, lots of potential energy not being generated from that, and also a familiar refrain. And I guess maybe normies or Barry Weiss will only recognize this as more of the same. Aren't they always constantly stopping leases for offshore drilling? Well, if you're going to stop offshore drilling, you should also stop offshore wind because reasons, even if it's whale cancer. But they got a new one. So this order lands as the Trump administration is facing political heat from skyrocketing energy costs, in part from the growth of data centers and artificial intelligence. So they do make that note as well. Residential retail electricity rates rose roughly 7% in September from a year prior, according to monthly tracking by the U.S. Energy Information Administration. And by the way, they're all under arrest. The pauses affect the Vineyard Wind 1, Revolution Wind, Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind, Sunrise Wind, and Empire Wind 1 projects stretching from Virginia to New England, initiatives that together would generate enough electricity to power almost 2.7 million homes. More homes than actually were supposed to get the big Warrior dividend, which, by the way, is due by today. I was wondering on whether or not we were going to see stories about people opening their checks at local diners or whatever, but I am informed that it probably went by direct deposit, if anything. And there's no way of, I guess, publicizing that except having, I don't know, do people have big parties at diners and check their balances online? They may or may not have actually gone out. There hasn't been much fanfare. There's been zero follow-up on that. I think people just assumed it was a lie, but maybe there's a big story in it not being a lie if it isn't. Anyway, just pointing that one out. Interior cited national security risks that were identified by the Department of Defense in recently completed classified reports. You can't see them. They're classified. But apparently, that's going to be the new excuse. If whale cancer doesn't bother you, if human ear cancer doesn't bother you, if bald eagles flying into the wind turbines doesn't bother you, there's a national security reason. The department said that the pause will give the administration time to work with leaseholders and states to assess the possibility of mitigating the risks. In other words, I'm blocking your project. You're losing money every day that it's blocked. If there's something in your hand, which if it was in my hand would make me say, what is this order stopping you from constructing your wind project? What is this? I don't get this out of here. I don't like that thing. Then that opportunity is presenting itself now. But in the meantime, the reason I'm stopping you is, are they going to get around to this? Eventually, they must, right? The Trump administration has paused the construction of all large-scale offshore wind projects because our number one priority is to put America first. Now, this would be cheap electricity for Americans, but not those Americans, putting another part of America first. And to do that, we've got to protect the national security of the American people, said Taylor Rogers, a White House spokesperson. It's a new one. I haven't heard of this person. The move represents a new escalation for the Trump administration, which has repeatedly sought to halt the offshore wind sector that was a focus of the Biden administration. So can't have that. Trump has called wind turbines a disgrace. How? I don't know. And a scam. Now, you could interest me in the scam, just in terms of what's the scam? Oh, they don't really produce energy all that efficiently. Maybe. I don't know. I've never heard that, but that would be a thing. A disgrace. What makes them a disgrace? I don't know. Are they trafficking teenage girls or something? Is that what makes them a disgrace? Anyway, he says his administration would not approve any projects, but also now they're going to block ones that were approved before. Just weeks ago, people familiar with the administration's thinking, if it is thinking, had told Politico that the White House and Interior Department staff were discussing a compromise that would allow the 5 projects to finish construction. Oh, actually, it was a compromise for them not to finish construction. Isn't that weird? But weeks ago, Politico, which hears all the truth all the time, heard they were working on letting them finish. Such a plan would still have allowed the administration to revoke permits for other Biden-era projects whose construction has yet to begin, but Monday's announcement seemed to put an end to that discussion. Instead, the administration has said it will bring down energy costs by undoing Biden administration regulations and embracing baseload power sources such as fossil fuels. Oh, and nuclear power, and, of course, the fusion he's investing in, though that doesn't appear to be noted in this article yet. The action on Monday puts 2 projects in the crosshairs that had previously faced the administration's opposition. The Empire Wind project off the coast of New York was already halted in April by the administration, as was the Revolution Wind project that was blocked in August. Those pauses caused widespread angst among developers and offshore wind supporters. A separate judge this month also called the administration's halt of permits for offshore wind projects illegal, but I don't think that's bothering anybody. Both pauses were ultimately lifted, one after Trump claimed to strike a deal with New York, and the other after a federal judge intervened. David Schetz, I think, Schoetz, a spokesperson for Empire Wind's developer, Equinor, said the company is evaluating the order and seeking further information from the federal government. So that's good. One of the projects halted on Monday is already generating electricity, but we're halting it anyway. Half of the 62 wind turbines at Vineyard Wind off Massachusetts, which is probably making Ellen Dershowitz sad, were producing power as of the end of September. It wasn't immediately clear whether the stoppage would lead to a shutdown of the turbines already in operation, but chaos. So let's find out. Neither Interior nor Vineyard Wind, a joint venture of Avangrid, like avant-garde, but Avangrid, with no T, and Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, Copenhagen, if you will, immediately Neither of them provided immediate comment on the pause and the impact to operational turbines, which means Barry Weiss would spike this story. ISO New England, the regional grid operator, has said it is counting on Vineyard Wind's power this winter. It previously expressed concerns when Interior halted Revolution Wind in August, saying the stoppage raised reliability risks to New England, which, of course, that's chaos. Trump loves it, and then he'll say, see, it's not even reliable. Well, that's because you keep trying to cancel it. Dominion Energy, which is developing the coastal Virginia offshore wind project, said in a statement that stopping their project for any length of time will threaten grid reliability for some of the nation's most important warfighting AI and civilian assets. They got them over a barrel there, right? Some of the electricity they'll be producing would go to powering AI data centers that are under contract to the Department of Defense. Oh, no, national security. Oh, but not that national security. We don't care about that part. The project, which is located about 23 miles from Virginia Beach, has the support of key Republican officials, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Virginia Representative Jen Kiggans. Oh, Jen Kiggans. Well, I'm glad you said so. But Mike Johnson doesn't care. He takes his orders from Trump. Virginia needs every electron we can get. That's interesting. As our demand for electricity doubles, the company said in a statement, these electrons will power the data centers that will win the AI race. Oh, crap. I didn't want to win that. Support our war fighters and build the nuclear warships needed to maintain our maritime supremacy. I'm not even certain how that works. Are you saying that they're building nuclear warships using wind power? Like the boatyard is wind powered, but they're building nuclear reactors with the wind power. Maybe. I don't think so, but Virginia's grid needs addition of electrons, not subtraction. Not 700% less electrons, damn it. Dominion added that it stands ready to do what is necessary to get these vital electrons, why are they focusing on electrons, flowing as quickly as possible. The company has said the project is expected to deliver the first power to the grid early next year. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum touted the administration's action on Monday as aimed at protecting the American people. Are we finally going to get the reason? Today's action addresses emerging national security risks, including the rapid evolution of the relevant adversary technologies, and the vulnerabilities created by large-scale offshore wind projects with proximity near our East Coast population centers, he said in a statement. I think we're getting to it. It's not whales or whale cancer anymore. Having windmills offshore creates some kind of national security risk. Burgum followed up with a post on X calling wind expensive, unreliable, that's not it either, heavily subsidized. Okay, there are three interesting issues, maybe not a problem, but none of them are national security. POTUS, though, he says, is bringing common sense back to energy policy and putting security first, he wrote. What's the reason? What's the national security risk? Democrats and offshore wind supporters say that the administration's efforts to halt offshore wind will only further increase rising prices. True. At a time of soaring energy costs, this latest decision from DOI is a backward step that will drive energy bills even higher, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement. True. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, true, said the pause threatened to leave workers jobless over the holidays while failing to address national security. True. But also, so far, this article has failed to say what the national security risk is, which is weird. We're finally about to get over the finish line and arbitrarily throughout that. What? We're finally about to get to the finish line. And the arbitrarily throughout, whatever, that this is somehow affecting national security, Hochul told reporters during a press conference on Monday. I have a real question about their definition of what national security is all about. Yes. Why is national security being invoked here? She doesn't say, and then they quote her as saying this garbled thing that says, we're about to get to the finish line, and then arbitrarily throughout is somehow affecting the claim that national security is being affected. Is it throughout? Because they haven't named it yet. Timothy Fox, the managing director of Clearview Energy Partners, said that offshore wind project developers are more likely to try to find resolution with the administration than cancel the projects which are now close to completion. Sure. But an open-ended pause creates enormous cost risks. That's definitely true too. Among the projects, we think the administration is most likely to let Dominion's project resume, and the facility would serve the power-hungry Virginia and PJM region. PJM. Okay. Referring to the regional grid operator. Okay. Interior on Monday cited, all right, finally, this is like the 99th paragraph of the thing. Do you want to know what is the national security risk of wind turbines? Allegedly, the new excuse is this. Interior Department cited radar interference, which it called clutter, as a concern caused by offshore wind projects. That's what this is all about. We're getting some weird readings on the radar, sir. Are they ships attacking us? Well, they seem to be standing in place about 23 miles offshore, exactly where the wind project is. What should we do? Nuke it, of course. I mean, that's apparently the concern. It's ruining our radar. I mean, turbines move, so they might get detected as motion offshore, but then it seems to be going around and around in very small circles in exactly the same place, 24 hours a day, forever. What do we think this is? It's gigantic Russian helicopters in formation, but not flying anywhere, is what your radar, I guess, might be telling you. No, apparently that's going to create radar clutter, and the administration had previously pointed to national security concerns for wind projects, but proponents argue these concerns are overblown, no pun intended, and ignore ways to mitigate radar interference. Yes, if you keep getting the same interference over and over again, you know what? AI, or just me pressing a button, can get rid of that for you by factoring it out as noise. The department pointed to a 2024 report on Monday that stated that radar's threshold for false alarm detection can be increased to reduce some clutter, but it said an increased detection threshold could cause radar to miss some targets. That's true, it could, but it's such a dumb claim, I guess, that even Politico couldn't bring itself to name it anywhere near the headline of this piece. So there you have it. Whale cancer and maybe radar problems. We should stop all of these things, even though they're already generating power. Sure, and maybe we'll do nuclear fusion instead.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
I got to get to that at some point and read you an article that actually claims that the Trump family is actually investing in this stuff. But it won't be me doing it today. Instead, I'll be handing things over to Justice Putnam for the rest of the morning. And top of his list is that weirdo Supreme Court. Just like it was Greg's top priority, so it is Justice's. We'll see you after the break.